Hey everybody, it's Daniel here from Mobile Syrup, and we are looking at the final Canadian retail hardware of the Samsung Galaxy S4. This is the black mist version, and there's also going to be a white version available, but they're pretty similar in design, and this is also quite similar to the Galaxy S3, but it's improved in quite a number of ways. So let's take a look at those individual ways in a moment. We're going to go over the hardware first. You can see that there's the there's the home button in the middle here, and it's actually symmetrical between the lower portion of the LCD screen and the bottom lip of the device, and that's actually in contrast to the Galaxy S3, where the home button was placed quite a bit lower to the bottom of the device. Now, what Samsung's been able to do with the Galaxy S4 is eliminate much of the bezel around it, so it's almost the exact same dimensions. It's actually smaller than the Galaxy S3, but the screen is 0.2 inches larger, and it's got a much higher resolution display. It's also 7.9 millimeters, which is 0.7 millimeters thinner than the Galaxy S3. And the device looks a little bit more premium. It no longer has that curvature on the sides of the device, but the metallic bezel looks a lot nicer, and the device seems a little bit more uniformly premium than the Galaxy S3, despite the similar designs. So we have the capacitive buttons as we did on the Galaxy S3. We have the back button on the right side, the menu button on the left, and on the left side of the device we have the volume rocker. On the right we have the power button. On the top we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, a microphone for noise cancellation, and an IR blaster, which is used with the software to control your television, and a set-top box. On the bottom of the device we have a micro USB port, and that doubles as an MHL port as well. And on the back of the device we have the 13 megapixel camera, LED flash, Samsung logo, and the mono speaker. The back, as always, can be removed, and you can see very similar in design to the Galaxy S3 and Note 2. There's a 2600 milliamp hour battery here, SIM slot and micro SD slot, and the speaker is actually quite a bit larger than the Galaxy S3, so the sound is a little bit better. Now, Samsung told us that the Galaxy S4 is only launching in 16GB model in Canada because the demand for the larger versions was just not there last year, and that's because the micro SD slot affords higher expandability capabilities at a much lower cost. So that's up to the buyer whether or not he or she wants to purchase that extra card, but it's 16GB. It's about 10GB available out of the box. So let's take a look at the Galaxy S4 compared to the Note 2. You can see the Note 2 is a little bit bigger, and also the bezel is much bigger on the Note 2. So we're hoping that Samsung can do for the Note 3 what they did with the Galaxy S4, include a bigger display with a much higher resolution screen, but actually make the device itself smaller. So let's turn on the phone. We have a 1080p display that's 1920 by 1080 pixels, and that's a 441 ppi pixel density. So that's a very, very sharp screen. It's a little bit less sharp than the HTC One, but the phone is very, very nicely saturated. The AMOLED screen, very, very well calibrated. The viewing angles are not quite as good as that of the One, and certainly better than the Sony Xperia ZL. But this is also a fantastic screen. Now what we have here is this new lock screen. You can see because this is running Android 4.2.2, you actually have the ability to install lock screen widgets, very much like on the Nexus 4. So that's one thing that you'll notice. This is running the latest version of Android, and therefore has some of those new features. Now obviously this is running TouchWiz, and TouchWiz is not stock Android by any means. You have your home screens here with your big widgets, many new features on the Galaxy S4, including Story Album, which is a journaling or picture album app. We have S Health, which allows you to track your steps and will integrate with many of the accessories coming down the road. We have S Travel, which is kind of like a Travelocity, or different. It's sort of going to give you recommendations for various places with big, beautiful photos, and also Flipboard, which is pre-installed on here. And we have many other things, including Samsung Hub. And the Hub is a new feature as well. Previous devices were not consolidated into one hub. They had a music hub and a games hub and all that other stuff. So this actually brings it into one app, and it feels really nice. It's really well designed, and all the content that you'd expect is still there. It's very nice. It actually looks far better than what I expected. Now, you can see that I'm currently interacting with the phone using AirView. Now I'm just hovering my finger over the screen and you're getting previews of the content. Now that's a new feature included in Samsung Galaxy S4. And you can see here we have the new notification shade, and I'll show you the settings in a moment. But another feature that's new to the Galaxy S4 is this extended quick settings bar, which allows you to see up to 20 icons at once and activate all the different features right from your home screen. And you also have this new brightness slider, which will allow you to set the auto brightness either -5 or +5 above the 0 mark, which is kind of the base default level for your auto brightness. So while auto brightness will still work, it'll just adjust the default brightness slightly for different scenarios. Obviously you have Google Now, which is integrated into any Jelly Bean device, but this goes a little bit further with a lot of extra features included on the phone. So as I said, we have those lock screen widgets. You can turn them on and off if you want. You can also change up the ability to go into your camera straight from the device lock screen. So for example, if I slide anywhere below the lock screen widget portion, I get right back to where I was. But if I slide from the top, I actually go right into the camera app. And you can edit that if you want to make it show you your favorite apps. So that's one thing that you can configure. A lot of other things to configure as well, including whether or not you want a personal message or just a default lock screen with a clock. I prefer just the clock. It's much cleaner. And you can change things like the clock size, you can show the date, and you can change your owner information. Now let's go back to this here. We can have the shortcuts, which were present on the Galaxy S3 by default, but they're not here because it's much cleaner on the Galaxy S4. TouchWiz has been cleaned up a little bit and feels a little bit more like stock Android in that sense. It's not as busy, which I like. And there's also a new lock effect, so if I turn the screen off, you can see that it'll track my finger. And if I tap it, it'll actually animate where my finger is tapping. So it's a nice effect, and it feels really natural. It's better than that little ripple effect with that annoying ripple sound that was found on the Galaxy S3. Some other features include an adaptive display. So what you can do is you not only have auto brightness, but you can have something called adapt display, which will, depending on your lighting scenario, adjust brightness, color, and saturation depending on where you are. And with Android 4.2, you now have Daydream support, which is turned on when you plug in the phone. So you can change what happens to the phone when it gets plugged in. I like having my battery life shown on the screen. And because it's an AMOLED screen, it's not going to use battery because everything around what's shown is going to be black. And therefore, well, you're going to be plugged in anyway, but it's not going to be as distracting, and it's not going to damage the phone in the long run by having the backlight on all night. So lots of other cool features like that. And let's go into a couple other things. Motion and gestures. So this is a couple new features as well. Air gesture. If I want to move an icon on the screen by just swiping over it, I can. So if I have an icon here and I just swipe left or right, I can go between screens. It's a little bit buggy, so I don't think I'm going to use it very much, but it's an interesting idea. And if we go back to the settings, we can see that you still have all of those variable settings within there. So air jump is the ability to scroll web pages when you are just by swiping up and down. I can actually do this, which is kind of cool. If the phone is just on a table like this, I can check what's going on, what my battery life is like, or if I have any notifications, just by hovering my hand over it. Okay, it takes a few seconds, but there you go. So you actually have, your missed call notifications, your email notifications, and it'll just disappear after a few seconds. So that's kind of neat. We also have the Air View settings, which allow you to see different parts of the phone just by hovering your finger over it. And this goes from gallery to speed dial to progress in a movie, for example. So I'll show you that as an example. So say we have the ability to watch just a short video. So I'll start this, and you can see here I can hover my finger and see down the road what the progress is going to be. And if I look at a photo, for example, I can actually we have to go back to the gallery for that. So if I want to see what a photo looks like in a little bit more detail, I can just hover my finger over it, and then if I want to see the full thing, I can just tap on it. And this is the quality of both the display and the camera. So I took this photo using a Galaxy S4. You can see it absolutely astounding detail, 13 megapixels. And also the 1080p display makes everything look really great. So let's just take a look into the camera software. This has been updated quite a lot compared to the Galaxy S3, and a lot of the features have been taken straight from the Galaxy Camera, which was released earlier this year. Now what you can do is you can have real-time effects. That's thanks to the very fast processor in here. But if we just want to go with no effect, you can actually see the various modes as well. Auto mode does everything as well as it could, including single or burst shots, but there's something called Best Face, which will enhance facial features. Best Photo will take a few photos and you can choose which one you want. Best Face actually allows you to take 5 different photos and it'll auto-detect the face within each photo and choose the best one, sort of like Time Shift on the BlackBerry 10. Sound and Shot, you can take photos and video at the same time, kind of like the HTC One Zoe. There's Drama Shot, which takes multiple exposures of a moving object and merges them into one dramatic photo. So it'll work if you say shooting somebody that's running in a straight line. And Animated Photo, you can create a picture that's animated, so sort of like a cinemagram. Rich Tone, which is HDR. There's Eraser, where you can actually take a few photos of the same scene and edit out something you don't want. And then there's obviously the Panorama mode, Sports mode, Night mode, and those two are very well known within most cameras. Night mode will increase the ISO and slow down the shutter so that you can get a better photo in low light. Sports mode will speed up the shutter and probably lower the ISO if you can, because you'll be in good light. So lots of interesting features there. You can also take 1080p video, and if we just touch that button there, you can, one thing that's really nice is that you can actually pause video instead of just stopping it. So say you are walking around and you don't want to have to edit the video later, you can just resume the photo and resume the video rather and it'll just continue where you left off. And you can also take a photo while you're filming video, which is kind of cool. Now, one last thing that I want to show you is something called Dual Shot. And Dual Shot takes a photo. It allows you to take a photo of using both the front and back at the same time. So you see I'm taking a photo here, and I can move it around, and I can make it smaller or bigger if I want. And then when I'm ready, I can just take the photo, and it'll take both the front and the back at the same time, which is kind of neat. So lots of really cool stuff in this new camera, and obviously you have similar options to regular cameras, including the flash. You can turn off things like audio, and you can change video settings as well. So lots of cool stuff, and definitely an improvement over the interface in the Galaxy S3. So while there is a lot more to explore here, we're just going to kind of leave it there, because we'll do a full review in the coming days and weeks. But the Galaxy S4 has a lot going for it. There is some significant improvements both in hardware and software, and obviously you get that Android 4.2.2 experience that no other device on the market has except for the Nexus 4. So if you're looking for a device that's got everything, maybe too much of everything, then the Galaxy S4 is probably the one to go with. Now, there's also the other consideration of the HTC One, and we'll do a bit more of a comparison in the coming days and weeks. But if you're looking for something a little bit more simple and easier to use, then the HTC One is probably a better choice for you. So this has been just a quick overview of the hardware and software of the Canadian Galaxy S4. This is Daniel from Mobile Syrup. Thanks for watching.